everyone, welcome back to Your Dose. This is episode 1 of season 2, where we are sharing stories of individuals who are making impact in the mental health space. And we are here also with our second in-person podcast, this time in Australia. So we are speaking with Mark, who is going to share his personal journey with mental health and how he became a Movember Ambassador. He emphasizes the importance of seeking help and therapy, as well as developing daily habits and coping strategies. Mark discusses the impact of fundraising activities and supportive relationships in his life. He offers advice for men struggling with mental health, encouraging them to be open and honest. In this conversation, the power of seeking support is emphasized as a way to navigate challenges and find solutions. Speaking to Mark, especially in person, and being able to hear about all his amazing achievements with Movember and the amount of money that he's raised over his 10 years of being a Movember ambassador. So I really do hope you enjoy this conversation today. If you are listening and you like my podcast and you listen on a regular basis, please remember to follow the podcast, review it, subscribe, wherever you are listening. It really helps to push the podcast and reach even more people, to hopefully help people feel less alone, which is exactly what this podcast is all about. Thanks again so much, and I will see you next week for next episode. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the Your Dose podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. My second ever in-person podcast, and this one's in Australia, which is really cool. The last one was in London. So how long have you've always been in Australia, but are you Sydney based, or where have you been living your entire life?
Yeah, so I've been living in Sydney for the last 5 years, and before that I grew up in a town called Albion Park, which is about 90 minutes south of Sydney. And before that, for about the first 5 years of my life, I lived in like country New South Wales, like central, like Riverina area. But yeah, Albion Park, that's my home. Shell Harbour region, Wollongong region. Beautiful part of the world, fresh to the country. Highly recommend you check it out.
I love being here. I'm intrigued though. Have you ever been to visit the UK?
I have. I went for Christmas 10 years ago this
year.
Yeah, my sister was living over there working in a pub. And so me and my older sister went and spent Christmas with her. It was so lovely. And it worked even better. She worked at a pub that was in like a business district. So like it was just closed. So we spent Christmas there and just, got on the pints.
Love it. Yeah. What was Christmas like being in the UK compared to Australia? Because I think that was like the weirdest adjustment for me, was being here after just getting here as well, and then having Christmas here, and it was hot. People are having barbecues on the beach. It just didn't make sense in my head.
Yeah,
so
I feel like it was a little easier for us because we've got like the zeitgeist around Christmas is like, snow and sweaters and stuff. So it was good to actually like wear one. It was good to eat like winter roast food in winter, as opposed to here where it's like, 30-degree day. Cool, let's have some roast potatoes.
Literally. Yeah, it is. I was literally sat outside with my friends sweating eating this roast dinner. I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Yeah. This shouldn't be Christmas Day.
How about we have sushi or something?
Yeah. They love sushi here. I've never ever seen so many sushi places, and they are open at like any time of the day. Like no matter what time of the day, sushi's open. Doesn't like sushi for breakfast, dinner, tea. Yeah.
It's the good cheap go-to snack.
So a little bit about where you're from. What about you? What are some of the things that you enjoy doing in your free time?
Yeah, so I'm a keen runner. I'm trying to cover more distance.
What's the furthest you've been so far?
I've done a half. So I've done a couple of halves, but that was before lockdown, before I discovered my addiction to Portuguese chicken, which led to a bit of weight gain. And I also love playing squash, which is kind of something I recently adopted when I moved to Sydney. So I run a little joke account called the Erskineville Squash Club.
Okay.
So it's nothing fancy. It's just me and my mates. It's me mainly, just documenting games we played, trying to add a bit of humour to it. We've managed to work that into like Movember, and raise some money through that. And outside of that, just like getting out in nature. And obviously one of my other kind of interests is I'm a Movember community ambassador. So over the last 10 years, I've raised $150,000 for men's health, which is something I'm immensely proud of. And that's kind of really formulated, like really been a part of my personality for a long time now.
So cool.
You're looking at a beard right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping to see the mo today.
Yeah, well, I'll show you the before and after because it's quite shocking.
Well, you'll have to send it me and I will insert it into this YouTube clip now so that the listeners can have a look at the mo in full force. But yeah, that's really why we're here today. And thank you so much for being here. I was kindly introduced to you through someone in my network and who spoke very highly of you about being a Movember ambassador. So I guess, first of all, if there is anybody listening who doesn't know what Movember is, can you explain really briefly what is Movember?
Yeah, so Movember is the world's leading men's health charity. Their primary focus is on funding programs and research in the areas of mental health, suicide prevention, testicular cancer, and prostate cancer. So I think you're pretty hard up finding someone on planet Earth that isn't affected by one or more of those things, whether it be directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
The last year they celebrated their 20th anniversary of being in the game. It's a pretty cool story how it started. It was two guys having a pub in Fitzroy.
Because I didn't realise it was Australian charity. Yeah.
Australian made.
Yeah.
So it's two guys having a drink and they were just thinking about something fun to do for their 30th birthdays at the end of the month. And this is 2003, so moustaches were far less prevalent as they are now. And they decided, why don't me and us and a group of mates, grow moustaches and then just have a party at the end of the month. And they really enjoyed it. So the next year they did it again, but they kind of factored charity into it. And from there they've raised I think over $1 billion for these initiatives, as well as they've funded over 1,300 programs worldwide in those areas as well. And some of the things they've funded is just like so interesting. So one that they're really pushing as of last year, it's an initiative called Ahead of the Game.
Yeah.
It's kind of introducing like mental health advice and training in junior sports.
Wow.
So, and this is not just, it's for the athletes, the coaches, the parents.
Yeah.
So, so many children play junior sports. That's where they're funneling. That's where they probably have an interest as well. So it's why don't we catch them there?
Yeah.
And it's good. I'm also really proud of it because it starts in Wollongong University, my hometown. So
unreal. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us a little bit of an insight into Movember. I didn't know a lot of those things either.
Trust me, you're in Australia. You will.
I will know now. So what is it exactly that started your journey with Movember? How did you become a Movember ambassador?
Yeah, so I guess we'll go back to the beginning. So when I was about 20 years old, I experienced depression for the first time in my life. I'll check my privilege there, 20 years without any issues, good run. But yeah, it stemmed from a breakup, just a high school relationship that came to a natural conclusion, two people going on different paths. But at the time, I had, my parents are still together, loving, supporting family, great network of friends, great area to live in. There's kind of an ad for Wollongong as well, but also, just hadn't even lost a pet so much, no grandparents, nothing. So at that point, it was just the most significant event in a negative way to happen in my life. So it just stopped me in my tracks, and it pretty much almost overnight completely shifted the way I approached life.
Can you explain what that might have looked like in terms of the shift? Yeah,
so it just basically stopped me in my tracks in terms of anything that I was interested in, anything that I enjoyed, any sort of desire to be like social or happy just came to a complete halt. So almost like overnight, the things that did interest me, like personally, so running, shooting hoops with my friends, going to the beach, things like that, I was like, well, I don't have the energy to do that. When I was playing footy and basketball at the time, so when they, came to sign up for another season, I just wasn't interested, so I didn't sign up. In terms of socializing, so before, very social, pretty happy-go-lucky guy, but the only time I had any interest in socializing was when I was, going to the pub with my friends. And when I was at the pub, I was, going hard on the piss, more than I usually would.
Yeah.
Especially for a 21-year-old who already goes pretty hard.
Drown your sorrows.
Yeah, exactly. And I found the pub, a good kind of, I felt like it was a cheat code where it was like, I'm getting away with whatever's, with whatever changes are going on, because here I am, I'm with my friends.
Yeah.
Pubs are, you can either have the deepest conversation of your life or you can keep it pretty surface level.
Yep.
So I just did everything I could to keep it pretty surface level. So that went on for about a year.
Wow.
And I still didn't acknowledge that anything was wrong. Like in my head, my brain at the time, a 20-year-old male's brain, not very developed.
Still so young though, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
20 years old.
Exactly. So in my mind, I just thought, well, this is life now. This is just how it is. And on another note, I'm an electrician by trade. I was doing my apprenticeship at the time. So I am just like switched off at work as well. And we work on power lines. So, live electricity, working at heights, things like that. So, that could have led to, it never did in my case, but if your mind's not in it during those tasks, you could have severely injured yourself or someone else.
Do you think that you were kind of just dissociated at the time, maybe is the best word, where you were almost like here, but your mind was elsewhere, like you were almost just like existing?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just a bag of flesh that's breathing and eating unhealthily. So yeah, it went on for about a year, and it got to a point where I got home from work one day and I just went to my room, as I do, to just hang out and probably play video games for hours on end.
Yeah.
And my mum entered the room.
Yeah.
And she basically sat at the edge of my bed and just laid it out that, like, she's worried about me. She's been worried for a long time, and she's lost at what to do to help me. But what she does know is that I needed help, and she urged me to go see a doctor because she was worried that she was losing her son, and she didn't want that to happen. So that hit home, like still does, as you can see.
Yeah.
Because it hit on so many levels. Because one, it was the first time that I'd ever had to look inward and acknowledge, oh shit, there's something actually wrong here. And the second part was like, I felt like I'd let down my mum, which, she's obviously communicated multiple times over the years that, like, you didn't do anything wrong, you never let me down, but, she's really proud of where I was. So, but even at the time, when I thought something was wrong, at the same time, I was like, why am I going to see a GP though? Like, there's nothing wrong with me. And she was like, no, Mark.
There is.
It's like, you can see doctors about mental health reasons. And I was, it's crazy that this is about 14 years ago and I didn't know that, like, knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
So even then I was still skeptical. I was like, fine, I'll go to the doctor, mum knows best. And
just quickly on that point, did you genuinely think that, like, everything was okay?
Nah.
You knew that you weren't, but you just didn't know how to get yourself out of it.
I think that's probably a more accurate description. I knew there was something wrong and I didn't know how to get out of it, and I kind of gave up the search on how to get out of it.
Because you just accepted that this was it.
Exactly.
This was life, yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably that's a much more accurate way to describe it. And so when I went to the doctor, I was pretty lucky because I got like a young male doctor who was pretty, clued on to
wow, that's so good,
modern medicine and all that.
Yeah.
So, the first time he contextualized what it was I was feeling, it was like, well, you've got a classic case of major depression. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And basically he was saying what you are experiencing is loss. So the same way that you lose a family member or something like that, the person may still be alive, but
It's crazy.
at its core, it's like, this is someone that was in your life, someone that you cared about, someone that's no longer in your life, and you need to find a way to manage life without that. And when he put it like that, it was just like a door opened, and I was like, okay.
And how long had you been with this girl for?
Probably like 4 or 5 years, something like that.
It's a long time, isn't it? And,
yeah.
And I look back on.
And you look at when you're younger, that's a quarter of your life.
It is, and it's also like a fundamental time of your life, because I remember my first ever boyfriend, and your first love, and like that whole like becoming an adult as well, because you had. I was the same. I was with my first boyfriend when I was 17.
Yeah.
And we broke up at like 20 when I was 22. But like a lot of like being it like monumental times in your life of like being able to drink. Like I was 18, I could drink, and that's like a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
Like and having him there for that, and then starting university, getting my A-level results, and like all of those things. That person is there for. So it's not even that they're just a person that you've fell in love with and that you're with. It's like they've actually been with you for a really important time of your life, where you're growing as a person as well.
Yeah, so many pivotal moments. Like finishing high school,
exactly. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, and I actually wonder how many people, and I will do this poll after this on Spotify to ask how many people have been negatively affected by breakups in such an extreme way like you have, because breakups are huge, and I don't think we give them enough credit for how difficult they are, because it literally is loss. But it's like you have to almost like pretend that they're not here anymore. Like they're dead. It almost feels like they're dead, but they're not.
Because you go to a social media feed and you've noticed, every photo of them is deleted.
Yeah, literally.
So you've almost got to brainwash, MIB style. Just pick the pen and just go, all right, every memory that you have that had that person in, you need to kind of try and mentally block it out sometimes.
Which is sad as well in a way, because that person has been a pivotal part of your life at that time. So to have to do that to get over someone is quite sad, but it's almost like it's a coping mechanism, isn't
it?
Exactly. So carry on. So you he told you that you were dealing with this loss.
Yeah, and so the next steps he prescribed me was Zoloft, just because he was
Zoloft.
It's an antidepressant.
Okay.
And that was basically to cope with the short term, because from that initial consult, he was like, I don't think you're doing too well, and so he put the offer to me. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. I didn't see any stigma against that kind of stuff. And that helped in the short term while I was waiting for my first appointment with my psychologist, because I got put on a mental health plan.
And how long were you on a waiting list for?
Pretty quick. I got in about 6 weeks, which
it's really good.
Yeah, which is sad that it's really good.
Do you think, because looking back to, I was 15 when I first was struggled with my mental health, and in the UK, so I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and I'd be intrigued to know, based on someone in Australia, but in the UK, even all that time ago, even worse now, I was on a waiting list for so long that it took me, it took the school seeing me in such a bad way that they had to put me in contact with CAMS, which is our leading children and adolescent mental health services. But that took 8 months. So, and I had an eating disorder. So imagine how much you can deteriorate in 8 months.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on a waiting list.
In the dark as well. Because one of my friends works at a psychologist's office.
Yeah.
And she was telling us about how, she had a mother ring the a client and ring my son, I'm worried. He's displaying suicidal tendencies. He's being quite open with his intention to end his life.
Yeah.
And the soonest they could get him in was 2 to 3 months away. And it's good luck until then. yeah, it's
I think that's
incredibly
literally,
sad.
I mean, if somebody's literally displaying suicidal ideation, then you've got limited time until they potentially
clock's
do
ticking.
that. So, so my question around that was, what would you say mental health services are like in Australia, based on your experience?
My experience has been pretty good.
Yeah.
So I've never had to wait longer than about 6 weeks for an appointment.
Yeah.
I also go, options, because I know there's like tiers, I guess. So I've always kind of gone the lower tier because my problems aren't that unique.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've found it's getting better in terms of like visibility and knowledge of availability, but yeah, it's still a long way to go.
And so what treatment did you receive from the psychologist? Was it talking therapy, CBT? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this on the train, so I can't like quite put my finger on exactly what it was that first time. I've had it since then, but that first time, I'm guessing it would have been more talking therapy, because it was just kind of having a chat with this guy who could help me understand, or I'd talk about something that happened, whether it be, during that dark period or currently, and he'd help me it's kind of like my Google translator of like, well, you say that, but what you think really is probably this.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I'm really grateful for, like struck gold with the first therapist. It's not always the case.
Yeah.
So I found progress pretty quick. Like it still took a good 6 months to a year to get back to where I was, but just having that first session be successful in terms of like, I like this person,
which is the main thing, because you can have a great therapist, but if you don't feel comfortable with them, or as in like they might be specialists in a field, but if you don't have a connection with them,
you got to vibe with someone.
It's never going to work anyway.
I've been with my girlfriend now for about like 4 years, and I think she's been through like 7 different hairdressers in that time. Like, imagine that, but with much more at stake.
Sounds like a female. I can relate to your girlfriend. Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing. So is that guy still your therapist now, or?
No, he retired the dog.
Oh.
Because
I was going to say that would be, I mean, how long, so 10 years ago, that would have been a long.
No, it'd be 14 years ago.
Oh my God, 14 years with the same therapist. Wow.
Yeah, so
not anymore.
Yeah, so that went, I got therapy for about a year, and in that time, shock horror, all the things that I quit were, a big key to me getting happy again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, he helped me kind of build myself back up and be more honest with myself, taught me a little bit about mindfulness, about, trying to, just be present in any situation and making that time for myself. Those were all big factors. And once I started getting a little better at that, I felt more motivation to, get back into my hobbies, sign back up for sport, stuff like that. And then, about a year went by, and, MK 2.0 was out and about. And I'll never forget, I was talking to a couple of my close friends, and I'd never shared with them once anything that was going on.
You hadn't? That was a question I wanted to ask you, because, 20 years old, 14 years ago, mental health just wasn't a topic that was spoken about, especially not in men.
Yeah.
So you're going to answer the question for me anyway.
Yeah. So I was sitting at the pub, and it just kind of, one of my mates he's pretty, like, he's just a good guy. He's got that energy. You feel like you can talk to him about anything, still does. And, I just kind of mentioned to him, was like, I've been going to therapy, and, the eyebrow raised, because I guess, for a lot of us people, just kind of, middle class and all that, back then therapy was just something like rich people did. And, explained to him that the last year has been pretty tough, and I don't know what the driver was to bring it up in that moment. I guess it was just a light bulb, and it felt right.
Yeah.
And then he kind of opened up that he himself had, kind of been going through some stuff, but hadn't really known where to go or where to start.
Really?
And I felt more honest chatting with my friends about that. as over the weeks. And like, if I was to do a survey, 90% of the answers were either I knew something was wrong with you, I just didn't even know how to broach the subject, or I've been, dealing with some stuff myself and I don't know where to start.
And you were the catalyst for that conversation.
Yeah, so that's
really, weren't you? Because had you not said anything, they would have probably just been like, "Oh well, same thing as you. I'll just have to deal with it. I'm not normal for having these emotions." And do you feel like? Do you remember what it felt like to open up as a guy?
Yeah, the first time, obviously, uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because you're kind of just it's like exposing yourself.
It's vulnerability, isn't it?
Yeah, and it still does. I do. I tell this story pretty regularly with Movember, and even now, after 6 years in the circuit, it still feels very uncomfortable to share.
Yeah.
But it's as long as it gets to someone or helps someone, it's like job well done, and it is worth it.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable sharing it that first time.
I can imagine. And in terms of your actually, so before we go into hit the mic. Before we go into the Movember journey, so you started to sort of overcome what you'd been going through. Did you have any relapses in the 14?
Oh yeah,
across those 14 years, you did.
So depression and anxiety is, I feel like it's something. It's almost like this thing. Once you've got it, it never truly goes away. It kind of just comes, flares up at times. Yeah. So it's just about building those defenses. So probably about 5 years after that first hit, it hit me again. It was more related to work. I was just going under an incredible amount of pressure at work. Wasn't really in like a healthy work environment in terms of the personalities and stuff like that. So that really triggered it. So I had to go back, this time as well. It was good. I still probably left it a bit later than I should have, but I was, man enough to acknowledge, crap, I need help here. So, and at least now I know the drill. I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
Went in, love to see Dr. Jerry. Jerry's retired.
The dog.
Yeah. So that second time was a little bit more interesting because I did see 2 therapists before I saw the therapist that I enjoyed.
Worked, yeah.
So the first one, I don't know, there was just something off about it, like she wanted cash up front before in cash, like physical cash, which just felt weird before the session even started. So it was like even before. So
you don't even know if they're the right therapist for you, and they're already asking for cash up front.
Yeah, it was just very transactional in nature.
Yeah.
And then although, she gave good enough advice, but in my mind I was like, there's just something it just felt off, and I walked out. I didn't have that. I was walking in expecting to feel that same kind of magical weight lifted off my shoulders that I did in the first one. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my partner at the time, and, she was the one that basically encouraged me, like, that's okay. Go to someone else, because the doctor was good. They gave me a list of, like, here's 10 practices you can pick from.
I guess it's like the hairdresser situation with your girlfriend, isn't it? It's like you might not have a great haircut the first time, but it might take a few hairdressers before you find the one who does it the way that you like it. So
still got to get an update off her. Is this one? Is this the one? The latest one she went to? And then I saw another one. Definitely wasn't, like a drug deal like that last one was.
Yeah.
But again, it just I wasn't meshing. It just didn't feel right. And again, my partner, very supportive. She was, telling me, try again. Just please try again. So I did. And the third one, I had this woman down south, and she was great. She was a bit of a straight shooter. She'd worked in, at the time, it was like a blue collar industry. So she'd worked with a lot of blue collar guys before, which is, a very interesting industry to work in.
Yeah, definitely.
So it just really helped. And then, a few years later, I went through another breakup. And this one was a bit bigger. It was a divorce.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so it was obviously huge at the time. I think the one big strength I had this time over the last time.
You knew how to handle it.
Yeah, and it was like immediately the second we knew, okay.
When those thoughts happen, you were like, okay, this is going to come back, obviously, but it's lost, and I know how to deal with it.
So yeah, I just booked in with the doctor straight away because it was like, this is,
yeah,
I'm feeling very, very overwhelmed right now. I know that'll subside, but like I can't go through what I did last time.
It's amazing that you have the awareness to be able to do that now, though. Are there any habits that you adopt on a daily basis or just in life in general that you think helps with your depression or helps when certain things trigger it?
Yeah. So my OG therapist, he got me into journaling, which is something I do religiously.
Still something I haven't done, but it's something I should really get into. And what does journaling look like for you?
So it starts with a bit of a recap of the day, just like what did I physically do today? And then I follow it up with like, is anything I've done, can I frame it as an achievement in any way? I also acknowledge the negatives. If there was anything that made me feel down, don't go into any great detail. Like if, they find mine in a time capsule, they'll be like, oh, this guy left a pretty boring life. It's not like the old wartime journals, But yeah, it was just a quick recap of the day.
That's really good.
Anything that happened that I can frame in a positive light, I acknowledge that this was a positive or it was a win or anything like that. Same with the negatives. And I've also, I just do like 3 little rules. So I've got just name 3 good things that happened today, no matter how big or small they are, like tried a new cafe and the coffee was good, good thing. And then like only this year I've started, so we're 11 days in, let's see how it goes. I've just got some little fitness goals that I try and tick off on a week.
Work towards. Yeah. What are some of the goals that you've got?
Stretching for at least 5 minutes a day.
Love that. I need to stretch more.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't everyone?
Honestly.
And like weights 2 to 3 times a week. Try and knock out 2 to 3 runs a week, and some other activity. So whether it be squash, swimming, hiking, anything like that. So
yeah.
And then I've got a bit nerdy. This behavior will definitely drop off. I've created a little Google sheet where I like track my progress.
Love it.
Just a little percentage score at the end of the week and like an average calculator on the left. So I'll see how that goes.
It does help though. Like I feel like setting yourself goals and giving you stuff to work towards, it gives you a purpose outside of your 9 to 5. But in terms of journaling, like going back to that, how do you think journaling helps you?
I feel like it's just a good way to like reflect on the day.
Yeah.
And you're actively trying to seek positives in the day. Like I journal at night. Some people journal in the morning and stuff. I don't think I have the energy in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good way.
It definitely makes sense because it's like being able, because it's so easy when you've had a bad day or something's gone wrong to focus on all the negatives.
Yeah.
But if you actually think about the day, there's always something good.
Exactly.
Even if it's like the smallest thing, like you said, like go to the coffee shop in the morning and having a nice coffee, even if it's your regular coffee place, that's still something to look at in a positive light. So I can understand it, and I definitely need to start doing some journaling, I think, after this conversation.
So probably I'm not going to be giving any groundbreaking advice. You're going to hear a lot of stuff you've probably heard before, but there's a reason it's on repeat because some of this stuff works and it's helpful. I can be your accountability buddy with journaling.
Yeah, that's that deal.
I bought one this year because usually I just get a blank notebook, but this one's got dates, like it's like a dated calendar.
Because you can get ones with prompts. Is it the ones with prompts in, or is it?
I haven't gone that far yet. But this one, it has the date, so at least it's kind of a motivator because it's like, I don't want there to be like 3 blank days.
Yes, you've got to keep doing it. So now going on to something a little bit different, which has just sprung to mind.
Sure.
So you have a partner that you've been with for a certain number of
4
years now.
Yeah.
How has that been with like your mental health issues, and how has she been able to support you?
She's been great. She's very adept at reading people. So, she helped me through a couple of years ago. I, relapsed again. It was more anxiety and stress driven. I work in power supply, and storms and fires are our biggest enemy because it just ruins the network. And the last 2 years in Australia has just been storm and fires, 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I was just dealing with a lot at work. And I lost it at a sandwich that I couldn't unwrap. And so I was, cursing the sandwich, cursing the cafe that got it to me, and she just came and unwrapped it. She was just like, what was that about?
Yeah.
And it wasn't about the sandwich. So, yeah, she was the one
She's
that
able to-
encouraged me, like, why don't you think about going to see a doctor again? Very supportive. She hates the moustache.
But she loves the cause.
Yeah, loves the cause, hates the mo. So it's a true testament to her character to stick with me, despite that. I look like a bloody weirdo to her. Yeah, she's great, and we're really good at communicating.
That's really good.
Every week we, every Wednesday we do just a little check in with each other, whether there's any outstanding issues or anything like that.
That's so healthy.
It's good, yeah, and it is really helpful to have someone in your life that you can be communicate with well, and who you're not afraid to broach touchy subjects with. As long as she's definitely helped me train myself into communicating in a healthier way, where obviously you might say one thing, but it's come across as something completely different. So she's told me to bite my lip a little bit and, think, all right, before I say this, like, what is the message I'm trying to get across, rather than like, you do this and, then it comes across bad. So,
yeah. And I think, like you said, being able to address your needs with someone comfortably and being vulnerable and like saying, I need X, and being able to be open about that, without being judged is really important as well.
Yeah.
So going to the Movember journey. So you've been a Movember ambassador for the past 10 years. How has being a Movember ambassador helped you?
Yeah, it's been great. So I got involved with Movember pretty soon after I went through my struggles way back when. And it was just convenience. It popped up on, Facebook feed or something. And I was like, this seems like a fun way to shine a light on something that is, very recently very important to me.
Yeah.
So at the start, it was just grow and mow, raised like $200 that year. Thanks, mum and dad. And then I linked up with a bunch of mates from Shell Harbour who were doing it as a team. And from there, it was just like, I love the community around it. I love that you can have fun while dealing with like the very serious topics you deal with. But I love that it's approached in such a positive, enlightening way. I love that, they're very open about like celebrating others and their achievements.
Yeah.
Especially now, like there's so much physical activity kind of ingrained into Movember. So it's promoting more than just like look funny for a month.
Yeah.
It's like they're really out there doing it as well. Like I've had the pleasure of going to Movember HQ, and it's kind of like a cult. But everyone's just really behind the cause, and so it's infectious when you're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the community around it, and just the fun.
And what's the most impactful fundraising activity that you have done so far? From a donation perspective.
From a donation perspective, in terms of how much someone has donated, or
how much you've raised. Yeah.
So I've raised over $150,000. So it's kind of grown year on year. My biggest years were probably about 4 years ago. Like my biggest year was I raised 30 grand in a month. So that's $1,000 a day.
And how did you do that?
So I was putting myself out there a lot. I made some music videos. I don't know if you've heard of the Inspired Unemployed yet. So they're a group of comedic influencers in Australia.
Yes, I have heard of this.
So they're from down where I used to live. So I was lucky enough to catch them on the start of their success, and they helped me out with a video.
Wow.
With a couple of videos. So they're still around on YouTube. Yeah, just me and my mates record a song. Like we did rap songs, and I think that one was a country song. And
love it.
So it started with music videos just for a bit of fun. And then it kind of evolved into, we ran some events like trivia nights, and
wow.
Trivia nights are really successful. And then I've also done what else have I done? A few weird things. One time I took tasteful nude Polaroids, and anyone who donated, I'd send them one in the mail. Nothing exposed, all very tasteful. One year I said I'll write a poem for anyone who donates around their name. It was probably the most difficult one.
Yeah, that's so difficult.
Yeah, and by the end of the month, you could really tell I was recycling stuff. And more recently, what I've been doing is been hosting squash-a-thons. So me and my mates at the Erskineville Squash Club, we just hosted a day. I'm going to book out some courts for 2 hours. If you've played the game or you've never played the game, come and have a hit, have some fun, have some chats, have a couple of beers after. And
nice.
They've been really good. We got Lululemon to sponsor them, which
is
great.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so because they're one of the major fundraising partners with Movember. And this year, most recently, it's probably my biggest endeavour to date. I hosted a black tie gala. So it was called the Fur Ball, which was a black tie gala on a cruise. So it was just a harbour cruise on a beautiful sunny day. Everyone in tuxes dancing on a rooftop.
Wow.
We did that with a couple of guys called Project U, which is a little group based in Brisbane who ran the event in 2022 to success, and they looked to expand. They found me. I signed up. And yeah, it
so
was
cool.
Good. Yeah, it was great. It was just such a positive day. And, between the two events, Brisbane and Sydney, we raised like 26 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was good. It was stressful.
I imagine.
So in terms of donations, I've done and tried a lot. I don't recommend writing poetry, but
yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I was like, the bad thing is that you could now go to ChatGPT and ask them to write a poem around somebody's name, and you would probably get one.
Exactly.
Without any brain force at all. So
there's also the physical challenges as well. I feel like that's the stuff that is probably on trend these days.
Yeah.
Where, like last year, I ran 100 kilometers in the month of November. So
wow.
Probably the furthest I've run.
Yeah.
In a month, which I enjoyed. It's kind of a good motivator. Some people are psychos in Movember. Like one of my good friends, he ran 3 marathons in a day. He ran from Bondi Beach to a place called Palm Beach, which is like
in a day.
In a day,
that's surely not.
Actually, to make it even more impressive, Dan Price is his name. Great guy. He ran it on one. He tried to run it on a Sunday, which happened to be like a 40-degree day. Only made it to 2 marathons, had to pull the pin.
Oh, what a shame. What a shame.
So he got up early a couple of days later before work and ran it like a few days later, just got up early, ran it in a much smaller environment.
Some people are just, I think, made of actually different stuff. Like that's just
like aliens are real.
That's just that's him. That is an alien. Yeah. I cannot believe that. That is insane. Yeah. And have you got anything in the pipeline for Movember this year for any of the fundraising activities?
It's a bit up in the air at the moment because I have been doing it. I've been an ambassador for 6 years. I've been raising money for like 10 to 12 years. And so this year, my partner and I are looking at taking like a big trip. I've got some long service leave sitting there waiting to get used up. So I'm considering, do I take a back seat this year? I do have an online store for Erskineville Squash Club. It's just where I sell some shirts.
Yeah, nice.
So probably what I'd do this year is just set that up more in a position where it's like profits from that can go to Movember.
Yeah.
So where I can take a back seat, not put too much pressure
on yourself,
during the month, but still kind of contribute in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if we're traveling just the two of us, I think me having a motor would help the situation.
I'm really intrigued to see this Mo, to be honest. I think I've seen it on the Movember website, but I'm definitely going to put, if there's not a picture already in this video, it's definitely going to be one inserted here.
Well, speaking of the Movember website, actually, there's a good resource on there for men who do want an introduction to therapy, aren't quite sure how it all works. It's called just basically Movember's Guide to Therapy. It's a 5-part video series.
Okay.
5-minute clips. I'll send you the link for it.
Yeah, please do.
Enough to play a role in that.
Yeah, definitely.
As well as other men who joined in. But that's probably where you saw my face.
And have you met anybody through the Movember charity? I've
made like so many friends.
Really? That's so nice.
Yeah. So through the Ambassador Network, there's probably over 20 of us now. It started with about 7 of us, but
so that's still quite small though. Like to be an ambassador, like it's pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it is.
It's a massive deal.
Yeah, I'm so proud of it. Like, especially the way I kind of got introduced was because I was raising some money, which put me on their radar. And when they found out I have a story to tell, and I think what I've grown to like about my story is the fact that it is a relatively mundane story. It's just a guy who went through a breakup and came out the other side okay. And like we were talking about with breakups being overlooked, there's so many things that get overlooked in this space. You know, you don't need a profound
story,
life-changing event
to suffer.
You know, you can be overwhelmed at work, you can go through a breakup, you could just have a bunch of little things that aren't going right that build up into something big. And the earlier you catch that stuff,
the better. And I think that's really important that you do say that, because I'm sure that there's potentially someone listening right now based on statistics of mental health who have maybe thought my issues aren't valid, or like my problems aren't big enough. I don't deserve to be sad. I don't deserve to be anxious. I don't deserve to not want to wake up today and get out of bed, because maybe it's just because I just don't like my job. Like that's not a valid, but it is still a valid reason. And like, I think it is important that you say that. And I do hope that if anyone is listening, that they've, and they feel like they can't go and get help for that reason, that this is the push that they need to go and
there's
get
no problem too small. And you know, if I was to give one piece of advice to people going into therapy that first time, is to really put that ego at leave it at the door, because they're not going to fix what they don't know. You know, you go to the doctor you go to the physio with a sore knee or something, you're pretty open and honest about what's going on with your bloody knee so they can fix it.
Yeah.
If you're not sharing that stuff with these, and they're just other people. They're no different to a tradie there to fix something in your house.
Yeah.
Like, they just need to know the problem so they can solve it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that comes nicely to the final question, which is kind of similar to what you just said, but more of a general, and specifically for men, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give a male who might be listening now and struggling with mental health issues?
I think be open and honest with whether it be your partner, if you have one. I think, let's say we'll do 2 categories. One, if you're in a relationship, be upfront with that person what you're going through, because I think you will be surprised with the support that you'll receive if you are just open about that. And 2, let's go with people who are those other ones, like do some activities. Like, I don't know if you heard of the phrase shoulder to shoulder activities. So research has shown that men are more willing to be open about things going on in their life if they're not looking at the other person. So
that makes sense.
If you're, you could have a game of golf, go for a walk, like shoot some hoops. If you can do it something around
side to side,
based around another activity, it's probably a way. men are simple creatures who can't multitask. So it's probably a way of duping us into sharing our real feelings.
Yeah, that's
But
really interesting.
if you're feeling uncomfortable sharing that stuff because you put it too much in your head, try and arrange something with a friend, a friend or someone you trust in that's activity based, and you might be surprised with what comes out of your mouth. And you might be even more surprised with the love and
Support
help
that you receive
in return.
Well, amazing advice. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and have this conversation with me. And I'm sure that this conversation will help someone, whoever's listening right now.
Fingers crossed.